everyone, Will here from Mature Minded Gamers. Eric and I are going to be talking about Aeons End, The New Age by Indie Boards and Cards and Action Phase Games. It is a 1 to 4 player deck builder game. That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
Cooperative.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it quite a bit.
There's some strategy there too.
Right.
Yeah.
I played the second edition as well as this one. I actually recently also acquired the Legacy version, which I'm pretty excited to jump into as well.
I'm very excited to check that out.
This one has some Legacy elements, so let's jump to the table and check out how to play Aeons End, The New Age. So as you can see from the box, this art looks absolutely amazing. Got some good, colorful characters, much better than the first edition, but this New Age introduces an expedition mode. And in this expedition mode, you have a deck of cards you're going to be going through. This is kind of going to tell you the story, but also help you unlock either more characters or even more nameless. And as you progress, you're going to be unlocking more content, which kind of has like a Legacy feel. But let's go ahead and do a simple explanation of how the game works so you can kind of determine if this is something that you would like. Alright, so in Aeon's End, you have these different casters. There's 4 of them in the box. I've got here Sahala, she's an Oracle. I've got Claudia, the Prospector. There's also Takrin, the Shield, and then Gygar, the Tidemaster. The characters have some different components on the player board. The first thing you'll notice on the Tidemaster at the top are these 4 squares. These are the breach locations. And as I have laid out for Sahala, for example, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. And they are oriented depending on the symbol that's on the board here. So for example, he has a special breach here. He has a 2 open breach, a 3 closed breach with the yellow mark down. Hers is to the right. And then a 4th breach here with the mark down. Now what you're going to be doing with these breaches is if they start open, this is where you're going to be able to cast spells from. Okay. You have the closed side of the breach that as they start in different orientations, they're going to have a focus, which means you can you can basically turn the breach, making it easier on the next turn for you to open, focus it again, and then focus it one last time, and then pay a much lower cost. Now, obviously, this is more over time stuff, so if you don't have just a massive amount of like 9 Aether here to be able to open this breach, just wham, bam, get it open, then you can kind of whittle it down a little bit until you can actually pay that cost to open the breach. Now, the character cards themselves have what their starting hand is, what their starting deck is, as well as a special one-time, well, maybe not one-time, a special effect that they can do when they have charge tokens filled up. So let's go ahead and just kind of dive to the table, kind of show you a basic first turn explanation of what's going on. You start off the game by setting up your tableau of cards you're going to be able to purchase from. You have gems, you have relics, you also have spells that you can cast. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to set up this deck of cards that give you the players. There's always a total of number of 4 player turn cards. Okay, so in this example, we're playing a 2-player game, and there's always the 2 Nemesis cards. Okay, each of these are going to be represented now by this little spot here. It says player number. You can put the number. There's tokens you can use that go on there that kind of show, hey, I'm player number 1. But once you kind of assign it and say, hey, I'm player number 1, that you're kind of good to go. Each character has 10 health. But this turn order deck is going to get shuffled, and then you're ready to begin. So, for example, we're going to have Sahala be player number 1, and then we'll have Claudia be player number 2. So the first thing you do is you are going to, again, set up your tableau of cards, set up your characters, build the starting hand, the starting deck. You're going to then choose a nameless you're going to fight. Now, this nameless has 45 health, which it comes with this awesome little dial here, pre-built out of the box. Didn't even have to put it together. So you set that to, if orient it the right way, set that to 45. And then you are going to flip this over and it'll tell you what to do. It's like this is place a nest mat, which is this board right here. And then you place 2 maggots on the nest mat, which are these itty bitty little tokens that are double-sided. One have a maggot 1 health, and on the flip side it is a fly with 2 health. So those maggot side get placed down. And then you're going to go ahead and flip this over, place it here. You're going to set Gravehold or your home base to 30 health. Again, if I had this turned the right way. So basically this is kind of like the city that you're in. You don't want this to fall. You're trying to defend Gravehold, so make sure it doesn't collapse. Save everybody inside. So you're going to start the game off by drawing a turn order card. Oh, it's player number 1. All right, so that means Sahala's turn. We have a little bit of a couple cards in here that we can choose from. So the first thing we've got here, you notice you've got these gems. This particular gem gives you 1 Aether, so I've got 3 of those. I have a spell. This deals 1 damage. And then I also have another gem called Sparkling Meteorite. Now this is specific to Sahala. It's part of her starting deck. I can either gain an Aether or I can gain 3 Aether that can only be used to focus or open a breach. That could be pretty good if I want to try to get and open one of those further down breaches, especially the Celestial breach, because that's, again, specific to her. So, my options on my first turn is the first round of the game, you're going to skip on the casting phase. We'll get to that in a minute. Excuse me. The main phase, you're going to be able to either play a gem or relic card. You can gain a card. You can gain a charge, focus a breach, open a breach, prep a spell to a breach, resolve a wild prepped effect, and resolve it to discard effect. Okay? So let's start with this one here. Play a gem or relic card. So, I've got options. So I've got 1 here, 2, 3, 4 Aether that I can choose from any of the market cards up here for 4. Okay? So whenever I play a gem or relic card, it is going to go depending on what it is. So like for example, if it's a gem, let's say I'm going to take these 3 and put those next to my player board. And I'm going to purchase, let's say I want to purchase this Exogranite. Now what this is going to do is allow me to gain 2 Aether, or I could use it to destroy it to gain 3 Aether. I don't want to really necessarily get rid of a card to gain a little bit of extra, so maybe hold off on that one. What if I got this card for 3 instead? Now this is a Tethered Dart. It'll deal 2 damage as opposed to the 1 damage. If this casts from an open 3 or 4 breach, you can place this card in an ally's hand. Kind of bounce it back and forth once you kind of get built up a little bit. So let's say I want to buy that. So that's going to go right down to my discard pile. And sorry, this game is a little bit of a table hog for the camera here. Alright, so that'll go to my discard pile. And then I have 2 cards still. So the next action I can take is I can gain a card. So that's what I did, is I played the gem to gain a card. I gain a charge. I can spend 2 Aether down here to gain charges. Once these charges are filled up, that's when my one-time effect can go off. Well, I don't have the Aether to be able to do that, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead on here. It says that I can prep a spell. So I have 1 open breach right now, and that's where I can place spells. So I'm going to go ahead and place this Spark, which again deals 1 damage. So I'm going to place it right down here on my open breach. Okay? Now it doesn't go off right away, and I'll explain how it goes off here in just a minute. I have 1 more card in my hand though. It's called Sparkling Meteorite. I can either use it to gain a money. There's nothing out there in the buy area that only costs 1. So I think what I want to use it for is I can spend it for 3 to either focus or open a breach. Now the options on my breaches, now again, this is oriented based on this symbol with the yellow side to the left, which is this yellow side. So if I focus it, I can spend 2 Aether to focus the breach. Now when you focus, you know the symbol, the arrow goes this way, so it means it would rotate it 1 space. Now, to be able to open a breach, either this turn or on a subsequent turn, it would only cost me 2 Aether to open it. So if I have 3 for free, I could just straight up open this breach. Or I could maybe even open up breach number 3. Now, why would I want to maybe focus on breach number 3 as opposed to breach number 2? Well, once this is opened, I'm going to gain +1 damage on cast. So anytime I cast a spell from this open breach, whatever the damage is of the spell that's being cast is going to do 1 additional. That could be huge because this game is going to ramp quick. And if you're not trying to keep up with being able to increase your damage, you're going to get left in the dust and you're going to lose horribly. This game is not easy. So I think what I want to do for this turn is I want to go ahead and spend the 3, because you notice this 3 is 9 to open when it's oriented that way, and the 2 is only 5 to open. So the bigger the breach, the harder they get to open. So let's set this back up, and I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to spend that 3, and I'm going to go ahead and just focus the 3rd breach. Then I take all of my, I use the gem, and then any of the cards you use to buy, those go last on your deck, okay? So then I draw my 5 cards, which your hand size is 5, and notice in this hand, basically we kind of already know that from the starting deck, is 2 sparks and 3 crystals. Well, maybe if I had 2 sparks, I'm not going to necessarily be able to cast 2 spells this turn. Well, let's see what kind of happens when we move forward here. So that's on my hand. That's the end of my turn. Because obviously or maybe you didn't see that, sorry. After the main phase, that's when you do the draw phase and you discard your hand and then you draw the top 5. So then we go back to the turn order deck, and the turn order deck is right here, and we're going to flip that over. Oop, now it's the second player's turn. All right, so that's Claudia. So we got lucky. Now, we could have had the Nemesis go, but for the sake of instruction, this is kind of how we're playing it out here. So I got my starting hand. All right, so notice we do not have any open breaches on Claudia. Well, that could be bad, because if we have any spells in our opening hand, we necessarily won't have anything to be able to cast. So I've got a crystal, 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 and then I've got this thing. It's called Aether Scope. It's worth of money, or any ally may lose 1 charge. If they do, you gain 2 charges. Now again, charges are how you charge up your ultimate. So every character has a very unique ultimate. They do different things, whether it's more support or build up or defense or maybe even healing. We got some pretty awesome effects. But as it stands right now, not much really I can do with this card. So I've got 5 purchase power. Or I can charge my breach up for 2. So I can put 2 charges down here, or I can spend all 5 to open this breach for the next turn. I think without having breaches open, I'm going to be pretty weak and not be very much helpful. So I'm going to spend these 5 gems, and I'm going to open this breach number 2. So that gets flipped over, open breach, and that's my hand. So I don't have any more cards. So again, I'm going to draw my 5 based on the draw phase. Excuse me. And then we're going to go back to the turn order card, and we're going to flip. Oh, there we go. There's the Nemesis. Now, the Nemesis, if you notice, has, again, 45 health. You can definitely put it to increased difficulty. I'd recommend not using this until you at least get the first game under your belt. Every monster, or every nameless has a unique unleash ability, which this one here, you're going to place 2 maggots into play. And again, maggots going to go into this nest map board. It explains everything on how that works right here in the additional rules. And on the back, again, we have the setup for how we set up them and how we know we have 2 maggots into play over here. So what we do on his turn is he's going to have possibly a row of cards out. Now, there's no cards the first turn. What you do first is you go left or right, and you resolve each of the cards in turn. Well, he doesn't have any out in play this first turn, so we're going to go ahead and just draw this one. And this one is an attack, an Aether Shock. Unleash. The player with the most prep spells suffers 1 damage and discards a prep spell. So after an attack card is used, it is discarded. So he unleashes. Now, again, we're going to go back to this card. It says unleash. Place 2 maggots into play. So what you use for this particular monster is, again, you have this nest mat. Now, when he unleashes, we're going to place 2 maggots into play. So we place a maggot there, and we place a maggot here. When this gets filled up, once this spot is filled, this goes off. It says Gravehold suffers 2 damage and he hatch 1 fly. So hatching a fly, as explained on the actual creature mat, what you do is you flip this token over from the bottommost left creature or a maggot, and you just flip it over. So this is going to be even harder for us to kill. We don't want this to get all the way up because that's how we can lose the game. Now another way we can lose the game is if both of our characters die. Because if your character dies, you're necessarily not out, but when you get dealt damage, Gravehold is going to suffer double damage. Okay? And then if another way we can lose the game is if Gravehold goes down to 0 health. Now we could win the game if the monster's deck is depleted, or we actually wipe out his 45 health before that happens. So that is the attack. That is the monster's turn. So now we're going to go back to the turn order deck. We're going to flip over the next one, and it is 2. So back to Claudia. So take their hand here. We got a spark. So we definitely, good thing we prep that breach there, or open that breach. And we saw 4 resource. So we're going to go ahead and prep that spell. So we didn't have any spells. Oh, we forgot to based on that attack card. We're supposed to discard that because it said the player with the most prep spell suffers 1 damage and discards a prep spell. So let's make sure we get our damage dealt to us. Discard that prep spell. So we've got 4 Aether here to be able to buy. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to purchase something a little bit with some damage here. So we're going to go ahead and purchase this Force Amplifier. Now this is a spell. On cast, deal 3 damage. If it was cast from an open 3 or 4 breach, deal an additional damage. That adds to, when I was talking about breach 3 doing the +1, so that's going to be a total of 5 damage from 1 card based on this card's ability. So that goes down first because that's what we purchased, and anything we use to buy always gets placed last. So at the end of my turn, if you notice, I'm going to take this deck. I'm not going to shuffle it, which is a very key feature of this game. It's going to go to my draw pile, straight flip over, and I'm going to draw the top 5 cards. So what this kind of allows you to do is kind of prep your deck, kind of build up your hand and everything. So as we knew, we have the same 5 cards from our starting hand. So we didn't buy anything that first turn. We focused that breach. Don't have anything else to do, so yeah, that was our second turn with Claudia. All right, so we are going to head up to the turn order card here. Flip this over. All right, player 1. Now, go back to our options here. Well, what I want to do first is the very first thing I want to do is I can open a breach. Okay, so I'm going to open this breach here. And then I'm going to, these 2 sparks, I'm going to go ahead and prep both of those sparks because I've got 2 open breaches. That's going to be perfect for our next round here. So the last card we kind of know from being able to card count here. Oh, Nemesis card. Again, there's no cards out in the prepped area. If there was, so let's say there was this power card was out. Now power card, let's just say that power card was out there. So it says power 2. Unleash, any player suffers 3 damage, and then any player discards a card from hand. And then it says to discard, spend 5 Aether. So what would happen is on power, what you do with those is when this card goes through, you're basically going to remove one of the tokens from the card. And when the last token is removed, that power goes off, and the card is then discarded. You can make it kind of force it to discard early if any player is able to use the Aether that they have from like their gems and stuff to be able to completely disregard that. So if that card was out at the beginning of the Nemesis turn, then we resolve all the cards in a row, and then we flip over the next one, which is another power. So it says power 2, unleash, any player discards 2 gems in hand. So there's no way to discard this card. So, oh man, that's going to happen no matter what. So again, this goes down in the row, 2 power on it. So that's what it says. We take the turn order deck. We give it a good shuffle. Make sure it's all good and shuffled in here, not knowing what's going to come up next. So let's give that a good mix. All right, so then we flip over the top one. Player 2. So we haven't gotten to casting a spell yet. So at the beginning of every phase, before you can play cards or anything, on the player turn card it says you may cast any of your prep spells. May being the key word. You don't have to, which is pretty cool. If you want to maybe save it for the next round, or you're trying to build up. You must cast any of your spells prepped in a closed breeches. Now, closed breeches. Well, Will, you said that you can't put spells into closed breeches. Now, you can. Now, what you have to do to be able to do that is during that turn, you had to have focused the breach. Now, any spells that were placed there once you focus it and you place a prep, you have to cast that the next turn. So there's no option. So there's no may in that keyword. So at the beginning of the turn, so this spark is going to go off now. What this spark's going to do is deal 1 damage. So our options are a couple. We can take this 1 damage that we're dealing, and we can deal it directly to the villain. Now, man, this 45, oh great, we're going to do 1. Oh man, that's not a lot, right? So you're thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to get 45 of through 2 turns? We've only dealt 1 damage. Well, that's why you want to focus these breaches and get the bigger hitter cards there. I think for right now, because we don't want this nest mat to get kind of overrun and we don't want to be infested by maggots and everything, so we're just going to do 1 damage to the maggot pool. So we flip over the next card in the turn order pile here. And the next card is player number 1. All right. So we have 2 spells prepped. So we've got 2 damage. That's much better than the 1 that Claudia just did, but still not a lot. Now, again, we can deal 2 damage to the Nemesis, taking him down, willing down. I mean, that's 3 damage in 2 turns. That could be big. However, what we're going to do is we're going to just deal 2 damage to 2 maggots here. All right. Oh, you may be saying, hey, Will, you forgot to play your other cards. I did, but, I'm just kind of explaining how this game works. So, again, these cards go over. I draw my 5. All right. So, I've got my options here. I got the darts this time, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure that gets prepped. I don't have it in 3 because I can't open that breach yet. That's quite expensive at 7 cost to open. But this 3 right here is going to allow me to focus it for 1 card. I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to spend the gem. I'm going to focus this breach, and that still gives me 3 purchase. And with the 3 purchase, I'm going to go ahead and get this exogranite, and that's going to allow me to get a little bit of extra resource in the next turn. Okay, draw my 5. Now noticing I have 1 left because I purchased a card last time. Okay, looking good so far. And then we're going to flip this over again, and oh my gosh, we got another Nemesis card. So with that, again, we're going to run through the list. So this goes off, and then now this activates, and it says Power 2. We have 2 power tokens. They're all gone, so it says Unleash. Now again, for this character, for this Nameless, when you unleash, you're going to have 2 maggot tokens come out. And then it says any player suffers 3 damage, and then any player discards a card in hand. So notice that's separated by the period, meaning I could take the 3 damage, and then, Sahala could take 3 damage, and then Claudia could take the discard. That's why it's important to make sure you discard draw your hands and stuff. So Claudia will discard a gem, and let's have Sahala take the 3 damage. So she's at 4 of her total of 10 health. Well, that's not all. Now we get to the next card here where we got to remove a power token from it. So notice it's still got 1, so it doesn't go off. No discard ability. So then we draw the top card, and this one is another attack. It unleashes automatically. Greyfield suffers 1 damage, and then any player suffers 2. It's like, oh my gosh, it's just kind of endless. Now, let's say for the sake of argument, I want to show you guys another one of the cards that's in this monster deck the Nameless deck is some monsters, like this minion here. A Curio Colony. Immediately, this minion suffers damage equal to the number of players in the game. And it starts off with 8 health, so we're playing 2 players, so it really only starts with 6. And then Persistent Unleash. Oh my goodness. Now, what Persistent is when you're running through the list of cards for the Nameless, when this gets to this card, the persistent effect just happens. So the immediate effect doesn't happen, anything like that. It's just a persistent effect is going to go off every time it runs through. Now, that is going to be problematic, but we're going to have that's instead of dealing damage to the boss or the nameless and dealing damage to the nest mat, well, now we've got another obstacle to fight, and we've got to be able to fight through these minions to be able to get rid of that card. There's no discard effect. It's more, hey, we got to deal damage to it. 8 damage? Oh, man, how is this going to happen? Well, I'll tell you how it's going to happen. When you finally get through your deck and you finally acquire bigger cards and you open breaches and things, so let's say it's later on in the game, it's Sahala has Breach 4 open, and I had this spell prepped right here called Force Amplifier. What this does is it deals 3 damage. If it was cast from an open breach, 3 or 4, deal an additional damage, so that's 4. Well, this Celestial Breach, let's go ahead and pull that closer, has an additional effect of plus 2 damage. So holy smokes, and there's just one card, we dealt 6 damage. And this isn't even the biggest attack. You've got this one here, which is absolutely amazing. It's called Imbued Smash. It on cast, it deals 4 damage. You may discard a card in your hand. If you do, deal 2 damage to the Nemesis. Effects that modify damage after both instances affect both instances of damage. So, let's say this was on Breach 4. Okay? So when this goes off, we're going to be able to deal 6 damage. And if we discard a card, we're going to be able to do 2 plus the other 2. So 4 more damage. That's 10 damage in one attack. That is absolutely amazing, because when you think 45 health, we are able to pull that a big attack off. Pow! He's down to 35. And this just became a lot more manageable once you start building your deck, getting the right spells out, and really building up your breach pool, making sure you have your cards going off right, getting your breaches open, the right order. Working together is key, because there's some cards that definitely help each other, like this one here. And this is Aether Conduit. Attached to any player's breach, when a spell is cast from this breach, the player who casts that spell gains 1 Aether. So if this was attached to this breach, for example, anytime a spell is cast from here, this player is going to generate a money. Not in addition to, obviously, the gems they're going to use from their hand to be able to buy even more expensive cards. So this game comes with a lot. Now this right here is just the opening scenario. This is the first learn to play, as far as what the rulebook examples tells you what to set up, how to play it. It's probably one of the best rulebooks I've ever seen, but it comes with a pile of more cards. I mean, there's just stuff upon stuff. I mean, it's very nice. It tells you, hey, don't do this, don't open this deck. Doesn't give you any spoilers. And the reason why it does this, and the reason why I haven't opened it myself, is because I haven't gone through this entire story deck yet. So what Eric and I have done so far is we've opened up this character. Now, we put it back in the envelope because we didn't want any spoilers to happen. Now, kind of minor spoiler, we are going to reveal it in our playthrough at the very end. But if you don't want spoilers, kind of be careful for that. But man, there's just a lot to this game. There's a lot going on. It's easy though. It's engaging. It's fun. The art is beautiful. I can't say enough about this game. All right, so that was Aeons End, the New Age. What'd you think?
Man, I love that game. It's way surpassed my expectations for it. I love like Ascension and Dominion type games, and I've never played one that was cooperative like this. And it just really hit all my my boxes for things that I like in a game. It did some new things that I know aren't brand new, but that I've never played with mechanic wise, like the draft order or the turn order for who goes in what order.
Yeah, that was really awesome. I like the unknown of whether you're going to go or the Nemesis is going to go. We never really encountered the Nemesis going 4 times in a row, but I mean, that could definitely happen. That could definitely make you lose the game pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
This game is hard.
It is really hard. I know we played the beginning campaign in the video that we're going to show you guys later, and we won. But man, it was pretty tough. There was a couple moments where I didn't think we were going to pull it out.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
I like the fact that there didn't seem to be one surefire way to win. There was always too many things for me to want to do. I'd never had enough resources to do them all, and and it was always a hard choice too. It wasn't just like, oh well, this is the best for sure every time. It was like, okay, we're doing this. I need to stay focused. on this, but I also need to get my runes, and I also need to help you, and I need to buy cards. It just felt like there was a bunch of viable options I could make.
Like when you're talking about you spending your ether,
Mm-hmm.
whether you buy the portals,
Right, or the cards.
right?
Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
Well, right, you could buy the cards in the middle, like the relics and the spells and the gems. But then when you want to open up your portal,
Oh yes, yes.
right? I mean, there's always options, or you can even charge, get charges to be able to launch your superpower, if you will, or your ultimate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. It reminds me a lot of, man, like video games in the aspect of, you have this ultimate power that you're going to be able to, like, you charge up and then you launch this massive attack or massive ability, which I thought was pretty awesome because then it gives you some uniqueness, but also the starting deck. I mean, I like that you have this starting deck, you have a starting hand that is unique to everybody, whether you have a certain number of gems and then, a unique card that's, special to your deck, and that variable player power of the charges. And, like on the characters, one of the characters I was playing, I only had 4 charges before I could launch my power, and you were playing some that had 5,
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was pretty neat, so differences there too.
I liked how different all the players felt too. So we played 2 games, each with different characters, and both of us playing different characters. And I really liked that the powers were completely different, and like kind of the way that we played the characters were different. Now both times it seemed like one of us took the main attacking role, and the other one kind of took more of the support role. But it was still quite a bit different, and I like that a lot. I can't wait to see there's more characters to unlock and more cards to unlock too as you progress through the story, which is really cool. I really like that aspect of it too.
Right, because this one has like an expedition mode, which is pretty awesome to be able to play a game and actually have a story in the game. But then even after you go through the story, then you have a whole bunch of stuff that's unlocked. This kind of had like a legacy feel to it in a way, because not everything was actually out and presentable to you as far as the characters and the Nemesis, or the Nameless you're going to be fighting. So yeah, I thought the card quality was good. I thought the gameplay was fantastic. The story was really good so far. I'm loving everything about this game. I love the art. It's just hits all my buttons as well.
Yeah, the art is really good. We were talking about that last night, how big of a step up it was from the first
edition.
Yeah, that you were talking about. And then I looked at some pictures of the first edition. You were right. Like, it is a much more colorful, and it just seems more fitting to the environment even too. Yeah, they've really done a great job. And in my mind, this is probably the best version of the game so far right now. That's a standalone, right? And that's the other thing about this game. You can mix and match all the previous editions, right?
Right. They have standalone boxes as well as a whole bunch of different, just small expansions that you're going to be able to acquire and give you more Nameless to fight or more characters to play with, and which is awesome. I mean, because when you think of a lot of these games, like these deck builders, sometimes they release like one set, and you're kind of just set with that one deck of cards or whatever, and you're just playing the same game over and over. But this, like Dominion, where you have a whole slew of different options in the center, you're gonna be able to mix and match that. What I thought was really awesome for a co-op. I mean, I know other games have done that similarly with like Thunderstone, but that's kind of more of a competitive, if you will. But this game reminds me a lot of Sentinels of the Multiverse with Thunderstone elements, and I like it. I like it a lot. It's difficult. It's definitely a difficult game, and even the first scenario we were playing against Magath.
That was his name, yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't easy. We were so close to losing. I mean, if the Nemesis would have activated right before we did, we could have easily lost that game. And
Down to 10 health, wasn't it? The town.
Right, we had
close,
10 health, and only 4 more maggots come out, and we would have lost. So, man, it was a good time. But I really like this game. I think you should check it out. In fact, I think you should go out and buy it. This is definitely a buy for me.
Well, that's one of the big factors. The cost is so cheap for what you're getting in this box, in my opinion. At $45 to $50 is what we're seeing the average price around.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you're getting a ton of high quality pieces and a lot of game time. I mean, even if you just played it through the legacy part, I mean, you're getting a whole bunch of material, and then it's a whole game after that too. So it's not like some legacy games where you're done once you're done with it. This game you can keep playing, which is awesome.
Well, one thing you said was high quality components. Now, I do have a little bit of a small gripe with some of the size of the tokens. I think the health pieces were just a little bit tiny for myself. I think the cards are great. I know you said you didn't have.
I thought they fit perfect because you got to fit them onto your player card. If you have these big old tokens, you're not going to be able to see your player card.
No, I get that, but they're just so small. I'm worried that I'm going to lose them. I just wish they'd have been a little bit bigger. But I mean, that's just a small gripe from a component side. I mean, the cards are great. Cards are great quality. Art is beautiful. I mean, that's the only thing that I've got is if the pieces and the components were just a little bit bigger. Maybe that's easily substitutable from like, you know, D10s or something, be able to track health. Mm-hmm. But everything else, the game is easy to learn. They've got an amazing intro of how to play it. Mm-hmm. It kind of just like tells you even in the pack of cards where they're already sealed up, says, hey, stop, don't open this deck. And then you read through the book and it says, okay, open this deck and set these cards here. More games should definitely do that as far as like an how to play option. And oh, it was simple. And you know, you hadn't played this kind of game before. Did you feel like it was pretty easy to learn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The hardest thing I think is the monster, and you did that every time. But once I watched you do it the first game, it wasn't that hard.
Oh no.
So
I mean,
just there was a couple questions on the cards that we had. That was the only thing. The cards need to be a little bit more clarified about when they disappear or if they stay out permanent.
Right. I had a little bit of difficulty finding in the rulebook about the power cards. Once the power activates, do the cards go away? It makes thematic sense that they're kind of like charging up their power, and then once they cast it, you know, it's kind of like disappear. Mm-hmm. But I had a little bit of a hard time finding that rulebook. But I think the organization of the rulebook could have been done just a little bit better for the explanation of some of the like keywords. They have a couple keywords in like 2 different spots in the book, which I thought was kind of confusing. But man, I like this game though. It's definitely, like I said before, it's definitely a keep and a buy for me. I think honestly I'm gonna give this one a 19 out of 20 for, you know, our dice score. It just a one shy for me because of the components, and that's due to those pieces just being a little bit small. And if they would have made just a little bit bigger, again, for myself and my own score, 19 out of 20. What do you think?
I was thinking an 18 out of 20. Knock it 1 on the quality. I mean, it's not. It is good quality for what you're paying. It's excellent. But they could have done a few things a little bit better. But still, solid game. An 18 out of 20 is not a low score for us at all. And you know, put it at an 18.5 out of 20. Just divide our scores in half. So overall, fantastic game. One you must pick up and play, in my opinion. If you are at all into cooperative strategy, deck building type games, I think you're going to love this game.
But I mean, there is no 0.5 on a D20. But you know, we'll talk about that later. All right, everybody. Thanks for checking it out. You want to take us out on this one?
Hey, make sure you check out all of our great content on maturemindedgamers.com. We do board games, video games, and much more. Have yourself a great day.
See ya.